Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel today. In an otherwise slow news week when it comes to firearms litigation, I did want to talk about a couple of things. We are coming up on the elections in 2024. There are certainly talking points that you are going to be hearing from anti-Second Amendment legislators and potential legislators that you're going to end up hearing over and over again. I wanted to go through a couple of those today, but before we get there, CRPA TV is doing a giveaway. For the first time, at least since I've been on the channel, we will be giving away a Springfield XD 9mm. This is part of our Reaching 10,000 Subscribers campaign. We will be pulling the winner once we reach 10,000 subscribers. You can enter today by commenting hashtag CRPA for the win. If you want a chance to win the Springfield XD, pop down into the comments, and if you are a subscriber and you comment CRPA for the win, you will be entered to win that Springfield XD. So be sure and like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And until we reach that 10,000 subscriber mark, go ahead and every video you watch, go down into the comments and comment hashtag CRPA for the win. We want to hear from you, and it really helps with the algorithms and getting this message out there. So, back to the topic here. You got Gavin Newsom, who is touring the United States right now, as opposed to being in California and dealing with some of the hardships that we have here, even unrelated to the Second Amendment community. I'm sure that you are apprised. But he's already circulating some of these thoughts, and not even for president or for governor. We're going to see elections, whether it be the Assembly, whether it be the Senate. We're going to hear some talking points, and I think we're going to hear them over and over again. I wanted to go through them with you because at the very least, they are dishonest. Certainly, they do end up being lying when you get down to intentions, and you will see the intentions when you look at some of these graphics. So the first one that I really wanted to cover, we've heard it before. I think Governor Newsom says it in just about every press conference he does. California is the leader when it comes to Second Amendment legislation. We're leading the United States, and it's really producing some good results. And it looks like that ends up being backed up when you go to something like the CDC website. Jacob, can you pull up that map when it comes to firearms mortality in the United States? You can see that California is one of the lighter colors here, and I think it puts them at an 8.5 per 100,000 persons mortality rate. However, they will never show you the actual statistics. They're just going to show you a graph like this. They're not really going to show you how they got this information, but I really wanted to dig into this because when we compare it to the statement made that California is leading in Second Amendment legislation, it really ends up showing you where the priorities are and where California actually ranks in regards to those priorities. So as you can see, California ranks 7th in the nation when it comes to mortality rates, which is relatively low when you're considering that there are 50 states. However, these statistics include firearms homicide as well as firearms suicide. If you've been paying attention to this cultural phenomenon at all, you will understand the majority of firearms deaths in California and in the nation are due to suicide. They're not due to homicide. So when it ends up getting broken down, 4.5% per 100,000 deaths in California end up being suicide, while 4 out of 100,000 deaths end up being homicide. But the real question here is that what our legislature is really working on? Is that what the consequences of Second Amendment legislation actually helps decrease? Is that what puts California all the way at the top of that list? And when you look at the priorities, at least in 2023, you'll find out that's not what it is. I think most people would agree that something that is directly correlated to suicide is mental health. And when you look at the California legislature's efforts to improve mental health, you will find 4 bills that are dedicated toward mental health. And really affecting mental health issues in California in a positive way. Really, it's only 3 bills, because one of those bills is talking about the allocation of funds. It's not even talking about programs. When you compare that, however, to bills that are created to limit people's ability to purchase or own firearms, I think you have 25 bills. Not even that. You have 75 other bills, which in past episodes we've had Rick talk about what spot bills are. If you don't know what spot bills are, go ahead and reference that video. Maybe we'll put it down in the description below so that you can learn up on that. But 75 other spot bills that are just waiting in the wings for legislators to continue and amend the way that they see fit while the legislative season continues to go on. When you add those up, that's 100 opportunities for our legislators to limit the way that we can purchase or own firearms, as compared to 3 opportunities to improve mental health issues. So what does that actually mean? Our legislature is more geared, obviously, toward the homicide portion of this statistic, right? I mean, you got 4.5 people per 100,000 who are committing suicide with firearms. You have 4 people out of 100,000. If we wanted to be generous and just round the numbers, let's call that a 1-to-1 ratio. Why isn't the legislation a 1-to-1 ratio? This legislation is what? Almost 100-to-1 ratio. So you can see where the actual priorities are. The priorities in the legislation are to cut down on the crime. At least that's what they say the priority in the legislation is. But has that actually been effective? So if we can take out the priority of suicide and mental health, when you look at that 4 per 100,000 homicide rate, it actually brings California a lot lower. If we can bring up the Excel spreadsheet, when you take out the suicide rate, that actually puts California 20th on the list. So if you put that into the context of what you're going to be hearing leading up to these elections, California is leading the way in legislation for the nation when it comes to Second Amendment bills and legislation. You're putting us in the middle of the pack? There are 19 other states, most of which have far less restrictive gun laws than California, that have better mortality rates when it comes to firearms homicide. If this was a for-profit company, these people would be fired. And maybe that's exactly what we ought to do to them coming into the next election. You are telling us that you are restricting us more than any other state, and you're lying to us in telling us that we're leading the country in something like a mortality rate when all of your legislation is geared toward crime. You're really putting us in the middle of the pack. We cannot let this go on anymore, and we need to be informed. You might know that these politicians aren't telling the truth, but your neighbor might not know. I guess my goal here today is to give you the tools that you can use to convince people when they are going to the ballot box, these sorts of statements are not truthful. And speaking of not truthful statements, let's go to the other one. Okay, we got a short video clip here. Jacob, why don't you play it? This is going to be something that you're hearing not just in California, but nationwide on firearms deaths in California.
It has been said, but let me punctuate the point that was asserted and reinforce it. The national conversation in gun safety has been led by the state of California, going back to, you can argue, the year of my birth, 1967.
I'm angry that in this country, and only in this country, the #1 killer of children is gun violence. As governor, we need to act.
Mr. O'Rourke, a question for you now.
Gun violence is the leading cause of death for children and teenagers in this state. Why are you waiting to save lives?
The leading cause of death for young people in Georgia isn't car crashes, it's firearms.
The leading cause of death among children is a firearm. The leading cause of death of children, do you hear that, my Republican colleagues, is a firearm.
Guns are the #1 killer of children in the United States of America. The #1 killer. More than car accidents, more than cancer.
I'm furious that in our country, guns are the #1 killer of our children. As a governor, I know we can and must act.
God, I got to say, I don't really understand. I've done this before. You just can't get things out of your head. The raspiness of Newsom's voice, I've never experienced that. The voice just makes me cringe. I don't really get it. But where's this coming from? Okay, all of a sudden we have a switch. The point that they're trying to make is that gun deaths in children has surpassed motor vehicle accidents to become the #1 killer of our kids. And that's what they say. They say our kids. But what are they actually referencing when they say that? Because they're not referencing anything that says anything about kids. I can, however, tell you what they're referencing. They're referencing a CDC report that shows the mortality rate of adolescents. That's pretty important here. Okay, when we talk about adolescents, we commonly refer to kids as adolescents. I do understand that, but this is a particularly tricky thing that they're trying to do, because when the CDC collects their data on adolescents, it doesn't just include kids. Let's look at the definition of adolescence, okay? The period following the onset of puberty, during which a young person develops from a child into an adult. Honestly, most of you folks in your 40s, 50s, and 60s might look at me and say, Kevin, well, what the heck? Nowadays, that can include somebody all the way up until the age 30. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you. But when the CDC collects data on deaths and they consider these people to be adolescents, what they're actually doing is they're considering people from the ages of 1 to 19. So let me ask you a question, and maybe this is a question you can ask anybody else who's bringing up this talking point. Do you consider somebody who goes overseas to war a child? Do you consider anybody who our legal system defines as an adult can be tried as an adult as a child? Because you see these statistics drastically change when you take out 18 and 19-year-olds. A lot of these fact-checking organizations, they do a lot of cover for leftist talking points, and that contains anti-gun talking points. But they couldn't even do it. If you look up Snopes for this, Jacob, if you can pull it up, let's read it. However, the result is different when one removes 18 and 19-year-olds from the equation and only relies on data for 1 to 17-year-olds from 2020. Nearly 2,400 children ages 1 to 17 died of vehicle-related injuries in 2020, compared to 2,270 firearms-related deaths. This was reported by NBC News and was done from an analysis from the CDC. We should also note that 2020, the leading cause of death among infants, which is less than 1-year-olds, were birth defects and preterm birth issues, according to the CDC. So they're not including anybody between the ages of 0 to 1, and they are including people ages 18 and 19. When you cut out 18 and 19-year-olds in this statistic, it cuts the statistic in half. Try to understand that, okay? They're telling you that 4,300 kids are dying due to firearms-related incidents every year. When you exclude 18 and 19-year-olds, it cuts that statistic in half. This is misleading, at least. This is a lie, to say the least. And it is not, by the way. When you take out 18 and 19-year-olds, it is not the leading cause of death, but they are going to continue and push it because they know that children drive an emotional response in most people. We need to take these tools. All references, by the way, are going to be down below in the comment section. We need to use these tools and not let these people shape the foundation of conversation in the upcoming elections, which is just going to lead to more anti-Second Amendment legislation. Please, guys, again, comment below. Let me know what you think about these ideas. Let me know. Leave me a comment on how you have brought light to somebody else or changed somebody else's mind. And again, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. It really helps with the algorithm. We are almost to 10,000 subscribers, and you could be the lucky winner of that Springfield XD if you subscribe and leave a comment below. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.